We are just waiting on a quorum for other members to arrive at the moment.
So Dr. Farmer, my understanding is we are waiting on a few more members to attend that are going to be here. They are not here yet, and we don't know exactly when they're going to be here. So we do not have a quorum. We need one more member. If we were not to get that member, we could still listen to the public comment, to the people that are here to give comment. So if you wanted to go ahead and allow people to go ahead and make their comment, if they desire to do so, we could do that. And then when we get a quorum, we could formally start the meeting, if that is your preference.
Sorry. I'll give it 2 minutes. And if another member has not arrived for a quorum, we can start public comment in the hopes that they will arrive soon. That will make it 3:50 at that point. So I think that's long enough to wait before we start public comment at least. Okay, so since we do not officially have to call the meeting to order to listen to public comment, we will start that now. I will turn it over to Mr. Hurt, who has the list for public comment tonight.
Good evening, Madam Chair. We have 5 people for public comment. They are Julie Prandy, Georgine Chisel, Ravi Devori, Irving Epstein, and Zach Dittrich. We can start with Julie Prandy. She's here in the audience.
Hello, and thank you for the opportunity to address this committee at this time. I've done just a little bit of my own research on the FLAC license plate readers, and I just wanted to raise some of the concerns that I ran across in trying to find more information about them. My first question is, where such cameras were in use, can it really be shown that they were effective? I think that it's hard to prove that where the cameras were in use, that any decrease in crime is really directly attributable to the cameras because there are so many other factors. And a recent quote from the New York Times: though gun crimes went up last year, overall crimes were down as part of a decades-long slide. The property crime rate has been cut almost in half over the past 20 years, unquote. So this is why I say it's really hard to say directly if crime goes down that it's because of the cameras. Second point, is the main purpose of these cameras to catch people who've committed crimes, or is it more to deter people? And I've read both reasons. And I guess I would just say that I think deterrence, it's easy to say that you've deterred crime, but it's really hard to measure that or prove that you have deterred it because of the many different factors that contribute to crime rates. Third point, there is always a risk of inaccuracies. Again, I'm quoting from a newspaper account. There is always a risk the underlying law enforcement databases the readers rely on may not be accurate. According to one estimate from the Northern California Regional Intelligence Center, the readers can be wrong around 10% of the time. That refers directly to the FLOC license plates readers. On my point 4, there is a danger of unauthorized use. Again, I'm quoting from a newspaper account. Even towns that only employ police officers to monitor the cameras, which I understand that's what we would be doing here. Even those communities face dangers of unauthorized use. My point number 5, if improved safety of a neighborhood is the goal, then the community where the camera is located needs to be consulted and needs to endorse the plan. Will the camera make the community where it is located feel safer? I read an article about in Decatur where they have the flock cameras, and one citizen preferred police on the beat to the cameras, and he said, so only certain neighborhoods are allowed privacy while others are being targeted. How about you have actual cops sit in those heavy crime areas instead? Now that's, to be sure, just one person's opinion, but it's interesting. And my last point is the bang for the buck. Is the price of these cameras, which it costs quite a bit because you have to run them all the time, and you have multiple cameras and each one costs quite a bit. I can say that officials in Olean, New York felt that the small upstate community had too little street crime to justify the cost of intensive surveillance. So after 2 years, they stopped the program. So I think we always should be asking ourselves, could the money be spent on something else which would be more effective in improving public safety? Thank you.
Thank you. Georgine Chisel, if you're on.
Yes, sir.
Mhm.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. All righty. Two of my major concerns about the ALPRS is what they will be used for and how they will be placed in the community. While these cameras themselves are marketed as non-biased recorders of data, placement of the cameras can have an impact on the nature of those who are targeted for monitoring. When this is done, it is often for the purpose of targeting an already over-policed neighborhood. Entire communities can be targeted based on their ethnic, religious, or associations. And in various documented cases, police departments without established policies have been caught in discriminatory practices of targeting specific neighborhoods or groups. So I'm saying that, the government audits in California and Vermont found that cities were not following their procedures for access control and prevention of improper use of their systems. The Electronic Frontier Foundation did a study in Oakland, California that found that Latino and Black drivers were disproportionately flagged by these cameras. In Alameda County, Pennsylvania, the district attorney approved setting up these cameras to gatekeep a poor Black community and monitor and track all traffic in and out of the neighborhood, regardless of whether there was suspicion of crime. Suspicious of crime. In New York City, police used these cameras to collect data on all worshipers at mosques. Having an established written policy prevents such biased monitoring from taking place. The Bloomington Police Department has stated that these cameras use will be limited to major crimes such as homicides, robberies, assaults, and the like, but no policy is in place. And this is important. And an established policy needs to be in place before a contract for the cameras is signed by the city. I think that this policy should state how the camera placement will be determined, what the cameras will be used for and what they will not be used for, as well as it should state what qualifies as a misuse of the cameras and their data and how much misuse will be reprimanded. Last of all, to ensure proper and productive use and placement of the cameras, an annual report by Bloomington Police Department should be made that is shared with the public. Transparency, of course. This report should provide an annual audit of license plate quarries for each camera to determine if there were any racial or social economic disparities reflected in how these cameras data, the camera data was used. A report should also provide the number and nature of any cases of misuse and report how these cases were reprimanded or handled. Last of all, it should provide for an annual evaluation by council to assess the productivity of the cameras in combating the crime issues that they were purchased for. Should the cameras be found to be non-productive or counterproductive to their intended use, then the city should have the right to not renew the contract. In summary, it is vital that we have a policy in place to guard against potential misuse or biased use of the camera technology, of the ALPR technology. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chisholm. Ravi Devori, are you on?
Hello?
Hello, you ready?
Can you hear me?
Mhm.
Okay, great, thank you. Good afternoon, and thank you for the opportunity to speak to you today. I'd like to speak about the issue of the flock safety automated license plate reader cameras and the contract awaiting approval by the City Council. I am a member of the Bloomington Technology Commission, and we were given a presentation on this technology and the proposed policies for their use. I greatly appreciate Chief Symington and Jack McQueen for providing us with that presentation and information about these tools. But following that meeting, there was no real opportunity for any of us to share back with City Council or the community at large what our thoughts were about the presentation. And so I thought I would like to share some of that with you today. I have sent a letter via public comment to all of you with more detail. And if you have not read that, please do so. Feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions. I'm going to focus specifically right now on the questions that myself and several other members of the Technology Commission raised, which concern the areas of data governance, auditing, and transparency. It seems strange to us that any subdivision or department of a larger organization would be empowered to create its own governance, responsible for its own oversight, and not have any apparent review from outside auditing. I cannot remember any employer where I've encountered that before, whether that was working at a large insurance company, a university, or at a state agency. There was always some external accountability or some systems to verify appropriate usage of any data, systems, or accesses. The proposed transparency portal that was presented is welcome. And while the reasons provided by the police for anonymizing some of that data make perfect sense. However, it did not seem that there was any mechanism in the policy for an annual outside review, and any auditing of the system would be only reported internally to the chief. It was also unclear whether any misuse or abuse of the system would be disclosed outside of the agency. Finally, it was not apparent whether any outside users of the flock system, such as officers from other cities who have been granted access to Bloomington's camera data, would be included in these audits or transparency reports, and whether any abuse, such as bulk downloads on their part, would be reported to the citizens of Bloomington. I believe there needs to be a definite and clear audit and reporting process detailed in any final policy. Now, the current policy as presented does not meet the standards that would satisfy those of us on the Tech Commission who questioned it. I think that transparency and accountability would go a long way in building trust, both ways, between the people of Bloomington and the police department. I urge all parties involved to make sure that enhanced transparency and accounting be included in any final policy. That such policy should be approved before a contract for these cameras and this software is signed. Thank you.
Mr. Zach Gitrich, are you on? I don't see Mr. Gitrich. You're in the audience, Mr. Gitrich? And that's the end of the public comment. Did I miss one? Oh, I'm sorry. Irv Epstein, are you available? Mr. Epstein?
Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, thank you. I want to speak about two issues that arise from the policy draft regarding the use of the flock ALPRs. First, the language in the policy draft is extremely vague with regard to the terms of ALPR usage, and that language needs to be made explicit. Oral commentary has suggested that ALPR usage would be restricted to the investigation of potential major crimes, excluding traffic violations or undocumented immigration enforcement. The language used in the document, a crime or violation of law excluding minor traffic enforcement, is not synonymous with the definition of a major crime, nor is it the same as that which was articulated orally. The written policy must be made more specific so that its meaning is clearly understood by the public. Second, I have a deep concern regarding the ambiguous way in which the use of flock ALPRs will be internally monitored. The written policy draft does not include a procedure for preserving records of those within the department who actually access the flock ALPRs, those who may be indirectly aware of their use, the length of time the ALPRs are used, how confidentiality has been maintained under such circumstances, and how effective the use of the ALPRs may have been. There should be a designated time period for periodic review, and such review should be regularly shared with the community at large. In addition, a regular schedule for the training of staff to convey appropriate procedures for ALPR use should be designed. I believe that the formal enumeration of specific protocols involving the use of the ALPRs is especially important in order to compensate for expected staff turnover and change of position. In summation, I believe that making policy language more explicit and articulating a comprehensive internal monitoring process with regard to the use of the flock ALPRs will greatly assist in strengthening police-community relations. Thank you for listening to these concerns.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
Mr. Epstein. Again, Mr. Goodrich, are you available? And that concludes your public comment.
We still don't have a quorum. So we can't do anything else until we do. So I will continue to wait a little bit longer as we try to reach the other members, and otherwise we will have to call this meeting again.
Sorry, could you hear that? Okay, so, sorry, it's a little confusing with the microphone. So we still don't have a quorum, Madam Chairman or Chairwoman. So I did speak with the city manager, and he said that he would be agreeable to pulling this from the agenda on Monday, on the assumption that this board could have a special meeting before the meeting on the 28th, which is the city council's last meeting in February. So then that'll give time for this board to, have its review, and then the council can act on it at that last meeting in February if that's agreeable to you.
Yes, we'll do that. We will set that special meeting up as soon as possible.
So, and with that, there's really no business that can be done since there's not a quorum. So we will just go ahead and set that special meeting. We'll just be on this topic and get all the feedback and the conversation that we need.
Okay, sounds good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good evening. Stay safe.